everybody. It is Chattin with Chap, and I am your host, Ginger Wade. And today we have a wonderful special guest. If you have anyone who does not love math, or you yourself do not love math or love teaching math or scary things like that, you're going to want to listen in today and get some encouragement because Mina Newberg, who is my guest today, is not afraid of math. And she's going to tell you about it and how you don't need to be afraid of it either. Welcome to the show, Mina. I'm glad to have you with
Thank
me.
you. Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What can you tell the audience about you and I don't know, your relationship with math and your family and all those types of things?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you the story. I'll give you the background. So thanks for having me on the podcast. I came to this company Wonder Math, and I came to this kind of position on math definitely later in life. So I grew up, and I think I grew up with a lot of messages about like math not needing to be something that was really my thing, and I think that there's a lot of that, at least for me growing up in the 80s and early 90s, that was like, hey girls, you don't need to be great at math. That's not, you're great at these other things. You're social, you're really into people and human connection. And I kind of took that path and ran with it. And then it wasn't until I was making kind of a mid-career change, and then I went to business school, and I realized, whoa, I really need to know this. And math is really foundational to all these different subjects. Whether it's the obvious things like finance, but even I was interested in marketing, which to me was bringing together psychology, which I loved in business. And even that was really based on math, tracking your metrics, tracking marketing, evaluating consumers. And so I had actually gone to UCLA as an undergrad, and I actually ended up going back to community college, taking classes in statistics, taking classes in economics to try and build up my math skills. And then and I went to business school. And years later, I have four kids, and my oldest daughter, who's in third grade, said to me, I'm just not a math person. And that really gave me a stomach ache. I mean, that was the real feeling of, oh my God, I can't restart this cycle where you kind of say, yeah, I get it, you'll be good at other things, and then close that door for harder subjects, majors, professions. And so at that point, I actually found Wonder Math and put my daughter in it, and saw it really transform not just her math skills, because I think there's a lot of places to do that, but her confidence around math and her feeling that she was good at math and seeing math as something that could be fun. And then over the years, I put more of my kids in Wonder Math and got more involved in the organization, and then ended up kind of taking it over. And for me, what really resonates with it is a couple of things. The idea that we can lay the foundation, or frankly, that we have to lay the foundation for this mindset around math, a growth mindset, kind of that can-do confidence around math for kids in elementary school and early middle school, because it's almost like an antidote to the stuff that comes later. It's the antidote to, what we hear when kids are taking AP calculus or studying for SAT tests, or, taking their first physics class, where it's like, oh, I don't like this. I just want to get through it. It's so hard. I think that the goal of Wonder Math, and my kind of personal mission, is to help build the foundational skills and critical thinking skills and resilience around these really hard subjects at a younger age, because I think it opens a lot of doors as kids get older.
Mhm. So, I mean, as you know, you're talking about it. Just the topic of math brings terror into the hearts of
Hmm.
lots of people, parents, children. But it's just this dread around that, this anxiety that's around it, and there can be joy in math. So you're talking about that. Those concepts that you're saying is overcoming math anxiety around um, building confidence early, like what all, like you were mentioning that. Can you package that again? Like how can kids over and parents overcome this anxiety about math? What is it that they can do?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is actually around how we teach math that's causing a lot of the anxiety, right? If we think about reading, or we think about storytelling, or we think about history, our brain loves a story, right? It's how we kind of pass down traditions and information. And so when we package things in the kind of the gray area of, this is a story and you can improve it and you can change it, and maybe it's like a little bit better, but it's kind of evolving on a theme, and there's no right or wrong. We like that. We feel more accepted, we feel more understood, and it feels less judgmental. I think a lot of the challenges around math come from the way it's taught. There's a right answer, there's a wrong answer. when you think about a math test, you think about red marks going through that test. You think about like kind of, did you get it right or not? So it's very outcome focused. And when we think about some of the subjects we really like, it's process focused, right? It's the process of writing that essay and revising it and editing it, understanding history, learning a language. Those are all process focused. But math, we've decided, is outcome focused. And I think that's actually what's causing a lot of the anxiety, is this idea of it's right or it's wrong. And it's a big thing. And this is a lot of what Wonder Math is, why Wonder Math is based on Carol Dweck's growth mindset, is the idea that like we have a fixed set of skills and that we can't change them, right? So that's like the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. So a lot of time towards math, people will, the language we use in our society is often like, I'm good at math, I'm bad at math. I just get it, I just don't get it. And I think when you see reinforcement of that at a young age, year after year after year, it really builds this wall that becomes impenetrable. And that's why the data that we see is the percentage of kids that say that they're good at math and that they like it in fourth grade is 70%. And by 10th grade, that goes down to 40%. And I think a lot of that is math just gets harder. And if we don't feel confident that we can figure it out, I don't even mean the skills, but just that we can figure it out, then we get more and more afraid of math and kind of turn away from it more and more. And of course, math is totally cumulative. So you have a year or two, you check out. The year after that is going to be pretty impossible to catch up. And so that's why I think the thing to think about is how we talk about math and how we teach math. I think that we as humans love, most people love puzzles and love the idea of figuring things out. And the idea of that process is something we can accept. And so I think by focusing on the process of learning something, the process of doing a problem, the process of taking steps, that's a way to really reduce math anxiety. I think when we focus on, did you get it right? Did you get it wrong? Or, math minutes, where it's, you have a minute under stress to see how many multiplication problems you can have your third grader do. You're setting up for a very anxious environment versus saying, hey, we're going to kind of, figure this out and take a look at how this works. Really focuses more on the process and reduces anxiety. And it's interesting because this leads to a very big debate, I know, in the homeschool community right now, which is around Common Core math, right? Common Core math gets a lot of, most states have accepted it as their primary standard, but many people and parents are kind of against it because the idea is it's confused for us that learned the standard algorithm. It's confusing. Why are they teaching math this way? I just lined everything up and figured it out, and that works for me. But I think the idea of Common Core math is actually to focus more on the process rather than the outcome. And the reason that it is so visual is so that people can kind of visualize what's happening rather than just kind of line numbers up to get an outcome. So I think, I would encourage listeners to think about why Common Core was brought into play and what kind of the value is. And it is around, if you read about it, it is about mental math. It is about having math be more part of people's mindset and having them able to access it more easily rather than, if you need to calculate the tip, having to like write everything out and
Yeah.
carry the one versus being able to kind of do some more calculations in your head.
Mhm. That's a very interesting thought. I love the concept of thinking of math as a puzzle, and just a visualization that comes into my head is you got the 1,000-piece puzzle. It sits on the table for weeks, right? You come in and you work on a piece or you work on a part. So, and it's a process and it's long. And I think it's really good for parents also to think about, we get so worried about behind, right? Behind, just get rid of the B word, right? Especially as homeschoolers. You have all the time in the world. Take the time you need to go through the process and understand and work through it. And yeah, like you said, the time thing, oh, I took that out of our math habits very early on because I could see the stress that it put on my kids. And I get it. So, and I understand, like, that everyone has different opinions on the Common Core and traditional, how we learned, whatever. But it is, everything's worth investigating, right? It's worth taking a look at it. And it could be the difference in learning styles, really, if you're looking at the learning style of your child and what works, because Common Core style might not work for some kids, but it might work for others. So it's just something, and we tend to be like, about things that we don't know
Mhm.
or aren't familiar with. So, I mean, that's learning for parents too. So it's really good things to think about, and processing, and trying to alleviate this anxiety. So with that, in math confidence and building confidence in our children, what are some ways that parents can help children to build this confidence? We kind of talked about it, being a puzzle and all these different ways to do it, but like how how can parents instill that confidence in their kids to be confident with math? Like, what does that
Mhm.
look like?
I think that's a great question. I would have three tips that I would give to parents to take away. I think the first is to start with the parent. I think we have to be really careful of our language as parents. I think if we get in the habit of saying, I'm just not a math person, I don't like math, oh, I never want to use math. I mean, our kids love us and respect us and want to mirror us. And so that is just going to be kind of repeated. And I remember when you and I first talked, you said like, "Oh, I love math." And that was so refreshing to me because I feel like often, and I don't mean to stereotype, but for women of our generation, it's rare. So I think it really starts first with the parent and their kind of how they talk about math, what they model for their kid. And I think the next is how they bring it into the home, how they bring it into the teaching. I think homeschool families in general do an amazing job of like incorporating the world around them to teach different subjects, right? You're not sticking your kid in a classroom for 6 hours saying that's your learning time. And when you come home, it's not your learning time. I think homeschool families do a great job of being more blended about that. And so thinking about where do you see math in the world or how you're incorporating math into chores, your daily life, service activities, and then pointing that out of that's math. That's why math is relevant. I think when people decide they don't like math or anxious with math, it's something that feels like you're doing it in a box. You have to do it and kind of grind through it and then you can leave it. And I think that's a mistake because you hear people say like I'm just not a math person, but you would never hear somebody say, like I'm just not a writing person, I'm just not an English person, I'm just not a speaking person. I mean, there's skills that we as a society have said you just have to do this, you just have to know it. And then there's some places where we say that's okay to say you just aren't that kind of person. And I think we need to change a lot of that language around how we incorporate math into our daily lives and particularly seeing it out in the world and as a core part of just the daily activities that we take part in. So whether it's having your kid calculate the tip at dinner if you go out, or if you have them using measuring cups and kind of converting different metrics if you're cooking at home, if you're gardening and you're saying like, okay, what does this weigh? So how many pounds is it? How many ounces is it? Doing those conversions. I mean, there's a lot of ways to just kind of bring it into life. And I think that makes it feel like it's not some scary thing to be avoided, but something to learn because you're going to do it every day anyway. And then I think the third, and this is for math, but it's really for so many things, is the power of yet, which is kind of the one word that I think is most powerful when it comes to opening up our minds and our kids' minds for what we can do. And so this is the idea that, you're not baked. There's a lot of evolution that can continue to happen. And so the idea of like, oh, you can't do that because for all of us, there's things we can't do, but you can't do it yet. And it's something that if you work at, you are able to do. Um, I think that I'm not personally a fan of like, hey, you can be anything in the world because I think that feels kind of overwhelming. And I don't think that it speaks to the truth of what it takes to get to certain places. I think that for us as parents and how we talk to our kids about their options, I think they have many options, but they take many different degrees of work. And so for me, the core is to think about like, you can get there. You're not there yet. Here's what it's going to take to get there. And helping to lay that out, I think for kids helps things feel more manageable and less unconquerable. So I would say talking when kids says, I can't do that, I think the response is you can't do it yet. And here's how we help you get there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that word yet. I think that everybody write that down. Write down the word yet because that not only for the kids but for us too. I mean, as homeschool parents, there's so many people I talk to who are just terrified or they feel like they're failing, or people that aren't sure that they want to homeschool because it just looks like this huge thing, but you haven't done it yet. You haven't got there yet.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to homeschool my kids through sixth grade and then I'm going to put them in high school because, oh, high school. But you haven't gotten there yet. Like you don't know what it's like yet. And it's just the next step. You're doing the next thing. And I think that's so great. And then if there is a certain bent that your child has, like say they do have an interest in, I don't know, doctoring or computers or whatever, um, but it seems way far out there. I mean, that's the yet, right? But what are the steps to get there? and you have these
Hmm.
little bitty incremental steps. So I think that's a really great viewpoint for everyone to have out there, that don't think I must know calculus when you're at, division. It's like, what is the next thing? Do the next little bitty step and take the time you need to do it, right? And the
Yeah.
methods that you need to understand it. And I think, yeah, I think that I love all those things, just the way we speak about it, the way we speak about ourselves in relation to it. Like, oh, I just can't teach my kids math. I just can't possibly do it. It's just impossible. And then that just makes math sound impossible, because like you said, your kids look up to you like, oh, mom and dad can do anything, right? So if you talk about it as being a scary thing, they're going to think it's a scary thing. So that, oh man, those are such good things. Those are such good things. And then that, just that you can do this, we'll just be working on it. I have one of my kids who I've given lots of extra time with their math learning in particular. It's just not something that clicks, and that's okay. But in the
Hmm.
last year, it's really come along, right? And so I think it's just allowing ourselves to give our kids the time that they need, and maybe it's just put it to the side and come back to it, or maybe it's try a different way, and see if that works. So I love all those suggestions. I think it's very super encouraging and really great. Yeah, the word yet, I just love that. So
If I can say one more thing, I think that the
yes.
interesting thing is that what we found, some of our best teachers, because our program is live online. So we have
Okay.
live credentialed teachers who are teaching on Zoom to small groups of 4 or 5 kids. And that allows them to have a really high kind of concentration of student to teacher. But we found that some of our best teachers, they didn't get math early on. And they're the ones that kind of had to work at it and had to really explain it to themselves in different way and come at it from different ways. And so that allows them in some ways to be a better teacher than somebody who, oh yeah, I always just get it. I don't know why you don't understand this. So there's some real advantages to needing to work through things and your ability to talk to others about it, teach others, and have real empathy for the struggle that other people go through to learn.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, because it's always come pretty easy to me, but it's not easy for me to teach it. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think, like, my daughter, she's a softball pitcher, fast pitch pitcher, and her coach is not naturally athletic, but he can break the whole process down into these tiny little pieces. And when something's off with her form or whatever, he knows what it is and says, you need to fix this. I look at her and say, it looks good. Like I was a pitcher, whatever, it looks good. It's just if you struggle with it and you work on it and you learn it, then you are more able to teach others. So that's encouragement out there for you struggling parents too. If you're working through learning with your kids, which is totally great with homeschooling, that is going to be to your advantage. It's going to be to your advantage as you're learning with your children. So don't think that because you're not strong in math, you can't teach it to your kids. You absolutely can. And you could learn together. I mean, I had a great second education in history when I started homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
History was not my thing. But when I started homeschooling, it became my thing and I love it. So it can be the same for you with math, or really with any subject that you struggle with or your kids struggle with. I think the things that you shared, Mina, I mean, it doesn't only apply to math. This applies to all types of learning.
Mm-hmm.
The
Absolutely.
get principles definitely for all types of learning. So this has been super valuable and really helpful. Before we wrap it up, is there any last words of encouragement or things you want parents to be sure to remember, or add to their routine, or to consider?
Yeah, I think one other thing is just the power of labeling. And I think it's, for those of us who have multiple kids, it's really easy to label our kids, our academic kid, our social kid, our musical kid, our athlete. And I think those labels, we have to be really careful of them. And I catch myself doing it too, just with a lot of kids and a lot going on, you just kind of need a heuristic. But I think that we need to be careful about that because I think kids start to define themselves in that way. And I think, as you and I were talking about about early before we started recording, and like, what is the role of AI in education? I mean, that is something that is really coming up. And I think that it's going to require a lot of pivoting, because we're going to see where are we, kind of better supplemented or faster supplemented by machine learning, and kind of where are our strengths. And I think whether we're kids or adults, that shift is going to end up happening with all the evolution of technology that's going on. So I think that at labels, and I think labels for ourselves, labels for our kids are almost the biggest barrier to being able to evolve, because we kind of stick that hat on and don't want to take it off, versus I think having conversations with ourselves and our kids about flexibility. Kind of, you had talked about like the flexibility of going where life takes you. And I think that saying, that labels are kind of the thing that make us less flexible, because we have this idea of ourselves and we don't want to change that. So I would say, just also as we talk to our kids about what they're good at, what they're not, it fits in with the power of yet, but it also speaks to the idea that we can evolve. And I think that's a really important concept as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. That is great. And exactly right on point. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And everybody take that to heart. Take that to heart. I'm so guilty of it. I am so guilty of it. I do it myself. I do it to myself. I do it to my children, and let's not do that. Let's not put ourselves in a box. Let's let ourselves be who it is that we've been created to be. So Mina, it's been awesome having you on here. I really
Thank you.
appreciate all these things that you've brought out. I think it's really good things to think about and to process. So where can people find you? You just mentioned Wonder Math a few times. So do you have you have podcast and some other things. So where can people find you if they want to know more?
Yeah, I think the best place to go is our website, is wondermath.com. We have a podcast, Spark Wonder. We are on Instagram, but our website is the best place. And if you want to reach me, I'm mina@wondermath.com. Obviously, check an email every day, and happy to answer questions and chat more. Would love to have your listeners try our program. And if they put in the code podcast, they can try a month for free of Wonder Math.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
It's been great having you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. So remember all the things that Mina has said. And remember, as you are learning to follow Christ in all of life, remember the word yet. All of you remember the word yet, and enjoy the rest of your summer. I will see you soon. Bye now.